Hey guys, what is up? Awesome the Sauce here. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and welcome to a video that needs to be made. Why does this video need to be made, Thomas? Why does the video need to be made? You tell me right now. Right now on Twitter, there's a great debate about fizzles. There's a huge debate. It's one of the biggest. It's crazy. It's the craziest thing ever. Now here's the thing. I think this is actually a very serious part of how both PvP works and honestly how PvE works. I know I'm a PvP guy, but I wanted to weigh in, just, give y'all my opinion about why fizzles are kind of dumb the way they are right now, but also how fixing them might not fix the problem, and also how I want to fix the problem. There are a lot of things here. All right, let's focus. Let's just back the dick up. All right. Back the hill up, back it up, I'm backing it up. What's the real problem with fizzles? I think what it really boils down to is that the fundamental part of fizzling is that you miss a turn. And I honestly think that this is one of the most unrewarding parts of the game. I think fizzling is one of those things that has the singular potential to turn away a new player. I can't imagine. I actually can't imagine just using a spell in Wizard 101, like your Unicorn Way, and use a 1-pip spell and you use it and you immediately just fizzle it. I can't imagine that. I think that's one of the worst feelings ever. I've never been a part of that, first spell fizzle club. But I can imagine that someone's just, trying to experiment with this game and they just fizzle the first damn spell they can. I'm not sure that's a good idea if you want to retain a lot of people early in the game. But that's just PvE and early game fizzles. I think it's one of the things that I think I can dedicate most of the time I lose to just fizzling, especially for schools like Storm, Fire, even Ice and Myth. It's a really unrewarding experience. But in PvP, it goes from being an unrewarding experience to something that I consider close to an exploit and also just purely stupid sometimes. This is not to say that there's never a right time to use a mantle. I actually think that the way the meta is right now, mantles are actually a very necessary part of the game. And I hate to say it because something so based in RNG should not be a necessary part of the game. The truth of the matter is there's a lot of scenarios where, because of how overpowered Shrike is, you can't really do anything but rely on a fizzle. Not to mention, there's certain spells like Abominable and Ifrit that do massive amounts of damage and do massive amounts of defense, especially Ifrit. You have no choice in those scenarios but to use spells. Like, for me specifically, I use a lot of Shift Grendel because you can break a weakness or a shield and also bank on them fizzling. And this is something that sometimes it's your only way to win from second. So I think when it comes to the way mantles work, it's really important to know that they are a huge part of the meta right now. Just removing them and not removing other things will not fix the issue. So that's why I thought I'd make this video. I think we can all agree that losing a turn in PvP pretty much equates to a loss in most scenarios. I mean, especially with how fast-paced max PvP is. It's really awful. It's even a bigger problem in low-level PvP, where it's much easier to fizzle. So how would you go about fixing? Right now, the proposal is that if you were to get mantled or something and you were to fizzle, it would act as a weakness rather than like a regular, just a loss of a turn. So basically it goes from, either you hit or you don't, all the way to you always hit, but is it going to be as strong as you want it to be? Now, let's say that it's not something that's proportional to how much accuracy you have. There are a lot of problems with that. One, accuracy would become pretty much a useless stat. Two, accuracy would become something that, you start relying on it as a better weakness. Like, if you basically used a -50 mantle or a -60 mantle or something, right? People have -60 mantles. Would that always be a -60 weakness? Like, I get that the trade-off, obviously, is that this is only, like, in a situation where you would have fizzled the spell, so the weakness isn't, like, I guess, like, a solid weakness. But I still think the idea of powering something with a -60 weakness is almost as bad as just fizzling the spell, right? So I think that if your accuracy stat isn't taken into account, I just feel like the damage loss would be way too much and it would just ruin certain strategies. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. Some people actually don't prefer that. Let's say you're blading up for a Spinosaur, you're blading up for a King Art, you're blading up for literally anything, right? A lot of people rely on one-shot strategies. There's some schools that can only rely on big hits for their damage. They simply don't have smaller pip hits that they can use to, you know, either spam down their opponent, weaken them over time. I'm thinking about schools like Death, for example, like Myth to a large extent. So, I mean, the whole idea of, like, you know, setting up a Thunderbird into a Storm Beetle into a hit, all for a Mantle just to completely remove your ability to do it because it's a way bigger weakness. I don't know. That seems a little, it seems a little strange to me. Now, the other solution that I did see on Twitter, you know, this is like, you know, a lot of the developers were also like, you know, putting this idea up, is that basically you would fizzle, but it depends on how hard you fizzled, I guess. That's how big the weakness is. Now, this is definitely a much better idea than, you know, just a normal, like, standard weakness, for sure. So let's say that, I don't know, let's say you're a Storm Wizard, you're trying to cast a 70% spell, you have 40 accuracy, right? So you're starting off at 110 already, someone mantles you, and you have, I guess at that point, whatever 110 minus, let's, 55, what is that, like 50, so you have like a 40, you have a 55% chance of powering. So let's say that you powered, then it would do full damage. But let's say that you fizzled, then since you had a 45% chance of fizzling, it would be like a 45% weakness. Now that's obviously pretty high, but depending, right? Depending on like what you're doing, especially as a Storm and as a Fire, these schools tend to hit a lot more. Unless it's a pivotal round, I think I would probably prefer to power it with, you know, that's a very, you know, Storm is the worst example for this because they have the lowest accuracy on their base spells. But even Storm would still be able to do a pretty big amount of damage, you know, through that. So, I don't know. Obviously, you could have more accuracy than 40. Let's say you had, like, I don't know, 57. I've actually seen that number a lot. I don't have Dragoon's gear. I'm honestly not even rocking, like, full gear. Let's say you had, like, I don't know, something closer to 50, right? Then I could start really starting to see, you know, how it could start operating in a way where you don't lose a turn and you're guaranteed to do at least, like, you know, 60% of the damage of a spell. I think that's pretty good. I don't know. It seems a little intense, but it seems better than losing the turn at least because your accuracy, it matters. You're rewarded for having more accuracy, and if you're really that concerned, just get more accuracy. You know, it's not the hardest thing to do. If you were to do it that way, I could start understanding, you know, more and more why it's the way that it is. So the way I see it, I definitely have a very, very solid opinion of how I want to do it, and you let me know if you guys agree or not. I think there's two big ways that you can do it. The two ways both have one thing in common. It's that, I guess, the harder you fizzle, the more of a penalty there should be. If you had a 2% chance of fizzling, then it should be like a 2% debuff. If you had a 50% chance of fizzling, then you should have a 50% debuff. I don't actually see a major issue with that, mainly because if you really are a one-shotting school, yes, it does suck that you have to invest more into accuracy, but you might as well if the trade-off is that games aren't completely decided by RNG. Like, I think that's one trade-off that some people, I get it, it's a sacrifice, I think it's worth making. The first solution, you know, keeping that, you know, overall, like, way, I guess, you get a penalty for fizzling, is you can use mantles of any kind, but only from second. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because I actually don't think you need mantles from first. Essentially, right, if you win from first, you have an extra turn compared to your opponent. So why do you think that you need an additional extra turn that's completely decided by luck? That's beyond me. It is, I can tell you that there is nothing, there's nothing more frustrating than like an Ice Wizard just mantling from first and then getting a Shadow Pip and then bombing you and then you die. It sucks. It sucks. It's not a fun experience. It sucks. It makes me want to quit every time it happens. So that's one solution. If you keep the current, you know, turn system, you know, first place, second place, just don't let them be able to be used from first. I genuinely don't think you need an extra turn from first. The other thing is, if you were to use mantles, then, and anyone can use them, then it has to be in a turn-based system. But the problem is, it has to be the right type of turn-based system, you know? I'm really talking about the fact that mantles are sometimes needed from second to win, especially at max level PvP. So I guess turn-based would just fix that, in which case, I guess, you know, you could completely make it so that, you know, the harder you fizzle, the more the debuff is, you know, the idea with the mantles, you can make that a thing, and let anyone use it on any turn. But at the same time, I still think that even if you were to go turn-based, it seems like a good idea to limit its usage when you're first, only because I genuinely just don't think you need a tool that does anything close to what a mantle does from first. Mantles are a very unrewarding part of PvP in this game, and fizzles are an extremely unrewarding part of PvE in this game. And I'm really glad that there's a debate on Twitter going on right now between developers and players. This is a really big deal. This was just my input. I would love to hear your guys' input. Do you guys agree that, like, you know, if they weren't to switch to complete turn-based, that mantle should only be used from second with this new system? And do you think that this should apply even in turn-based? I'd love to hear y'all's opinions, as always. I think those opinions are a lot better than mine at times, so I'd love to hear them. I'll try to respond to a bunch of things. I'll even send this to Mattnetic, KI, anyone who's talking about this on Twitter. As always, there's tons of links in the description, including my Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, my Instagram, and if you want to support the content monthly, my Patreon. Thank you for all the love on Patreon. I love you. I love you. I love you, hoes. And as always, if someone has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. Let me know what you think in the comments, and stay awesome, brother. And yeah.